Then after 14 years, I went up to Jerusalem again with Barnabas, taking Titus along too. I went there because of a revelation and presented to them the gospel that I preached among the Gentiles. But I did so only in a private meeting with the influential people to make sure that I was not running or had run in vain. Yet not even Titus, who was with me, was compelled to be circumcised. Although he was a Greek, now this matter arose because the false brothers with false pretenses who slipped in unnoticed to spy on our freedom that we have in Christ Jesus to make us slaves. But we did not surrender to them even for a moment in order that the truth of the gospel would remain with you. But from those who were influential, whatever there were makes no difference to me. God shows no favoritism between people. Those influential leaders added nothing to my message. On the contrary, when they saw that I was entrusted with the gospel to the uncircumcised, just as Peter was entrusted with the gospel to the circumcised, for he who empowered Peter for his apostleship to the circumcised also empowered me for my apostleship to the Gentiles. And when James, Cephas, and John, who had a reputation as pillars, recognized the grace that had been given to me, they gave to Barnabas and me, they gave to me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship, agreeing that we would go to the Gentiles and they to the circumcised. They requested only that we remember the poor, the very thing I also was eager to do. But when Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he had clearly done wrong. Until certain people came from James, he had been eating with the Gentiles. But when they arrived, he stopped doing this and separated himself because he was afraid of those who were pro-circumcision. And the rest of the Jews also joined with him in this hypocrisy, so that even Barnabas was led astray with them by their hypocrisy. But when I saw that they were not behaving consistently with the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas in front of them all, if you, although you are a Jew, live like a Gentile and not like a Jew, how can you try to force the Gentiles to live like a Jew? We are Jews by birth and not Gentile sinners. Yet we know that no one is justified by the works of the law, but by the faithfulness of Jesus Christ. And we have come to believe in Christ Jesus so that we may be justified by the faithfulness of Christ and not by the works of the law, because by the works of the law no one will be justified. But if while seeking to be justified in Christ, we ourselves have also been found to be sinners, is Christ the one who encourages sin? Absolutely not. But if I build up again those things I once destroyed, I demonstrate that I am one who breaks God's law. For through the law, I die to the law so that I may live to God. I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I that live, but Christ lives in me. So the life I now live in the body, I live because of the faithfulness of the Son of God, who loved me, gave himself for me. I do not set aside God's grace, because if righteousness could come through the law, then Christ died for nothing. All right. So Paul making some pretty good direct points at people about what's going on here in the second chapter. Okay, where are we at? So after 14 years, I went up to Jerusalem. So we have to figure this is going to include, well, maybe we don't have to it either includes the 3 years you already mentioned, going into Arabia and then coming back to Damascus and then Antioch and then being in there. And then what you have to settle on is whether or not this is written, because he talks about Peter coming and visiting. And Peter, either, if you say, like, there's North Galatia theory and South Galatia is usually how it's phrased. But some of it has to do is Galatians written before Acts 15 or after Acts 15 is essentially part of that argument. I think it's written before Acts 15 because the way that Peter argues in Acts 15, and we see nothing to the contrary of Peter's behavior after Acts 15 that shows him to be wishy-washy, that shows him to not have a firm stance on the position of where the Gentiles are at. So I see it as what's happening here when Peter comes to visit and he's hanging out and he's eating with the Gentiles, and all of a sudden some people from Jerusalem come and he's like, oh, whoa. Okay, I guess I shouldn't be doing that. It wasn't well established yet, but after Acts 15, it is clearly established there is no need for circumcision to happen. So I think what's happening here is that Paul is addressing those who have come in and are making the argument about circumcision, and he's bringing up the point, hey, this is not new. It's already happened when I was with you. Or when I was in Antioch, this already happened. Peter came up. Let me tell you about this story. Peter came up, and we had it happen in here. This isn't new, that there are those people who are going to tell you that you've got to go do all those things in the law to be part of, and there's other places where the scriptures argue around that Abraham, his faith was counted to him, and that's not in the law. That precedes the law of Moses. So you don't need the law to be righteous with God. You could never be righteous with God by the works of the law. So that's part of what he is going, and he's making a claim here, would be the way I would see that. Also, he's like, and even Titus wasn't compelled to be circumcised. Like, Titus is he's a Greek. We weren't compelled by this argument that you have to be circumcised. So, hey, I'm not doing this. I'm not giving into it. Titus isn't. You know Titus. He's a Greek. He's not circumcised. Why? Because circumcision wasn't given to the Gentiles. It was given just to those who were Jewish. So, that's where the line is. Oh, and then he's like, yeah, these influential, but those who are influential, whatever, whatever they were, it makes no difference. I don't show any favoritism. Apparently some expression here that he's downplaying the importance of these influential people who are coming in and saying contrary things. Now, I know the 14 years makes it, well, then when did he go on his journey? How long was he at the church of Antioch? We just don't know. We just don't know. From Paul's conversion on the road to Damascus, when he was persecuting the church, we know that it's 3 years later that he gets to the church of Antioch and begins to do ministry there. So is he counting that it was that length of time, and during that length of time, before he went down to Jerusalem, that Peter came up in that 14-year period of time? I think so. I think it sounds like either he's at the church of Antioch for 11 years and he's adding the 3 years, or he was at the church of Antioch for like 14 years before they sent him out to go on a missionary trip. Because it's when they go down to Jerusalem and come back, and after that he goes on his missionary trip. So I think that could be what's accounted for there. We see, did I miss anything else going on in this passage? By the way, if you have questions, feel free to ask those. And I know a lot of you just lurk, so I appreciate you all being here. And, it is New Year's Day, so some of you may have been up late just to make sure, that the new year actually happened. Let's see. Oh, I demonstrate that I am one who breaks God's law. Okay, what is it? If I build upon anything other, these things I once destroyed, I don't. Yeah, so if I'm building everything on the law, then I am demonstrating I am one who breaks the law. For through the law I died to the law, so that I may live to God. I have been crucified with Christ. So it is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. This is a really a wonderful way of thinking about it. So the life I now live in the body, I live because of the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. That's the basis of what we do, is we are basing our lives on what Christ has done on our behalf. And we subject ourselves, we subjugate ourselves, we become, as he says, a slave to Christ, a slave to the gospel, because it's out of gratitude and compelling nature of what Christ did that draws us to go and do these things. So we're not setting aside God's grace. But if righteousness could be through the law, then Christ died for nothing. So if the law would bring righteousness, now it's not to say that Abraham did not have faith and it wasn't credited him to righteousness. It's not Paul's argument. Paul's argument is the letter of the law, the following of the law, is not what is going to bring you grace. It is not what is going to bring you righteousness. That's his point.